sites in that part also, which have not been maybe tapped yet, not been discovered yet. There is a possibility of finding similar early sites in that part also. So it will be, very hasty to make any kind of conclusion, but the beginning is going quite early, that is very important. And then from 5500 BC up to the beginning of the Harappan culture, what is the journey impact, how they have progressed? That is what we are trying to understand. And we have got very good evidence about, particularly the evidence of the architecture, very good evidence. There is no doubt about the gradual growth of the Harappan culture. Next, please. This is the evidence from the site of Kunal. At Kunal also, very small site, but again the very early beginning, the earliest phase of the early Harappan is present here. And from early Harappan to the mature Harappan, there is a continuous sequence of the site. And there you can see that in the lower level there are pits. And these are the pits which have been identified as pit dwellings. I will show how, what kind of evidence they have. And convincingly they are pit dwellings. So that is the first stage. In the next stage, people have built overground structures. In the third phase, maybe circular, rectangular structures. Fourth phase, there is modicum planning. And in the last phase, you come across full-fledged town, city. So that is the journey impact, which is quite well reflected in number of sites here. Next, please. Same is the evidence from the site of Biran also. From pit dwelling to the, a well-planned settlement at the site. Gradual growth. Next, please. These are the pits. Look small, but they are in the form of clusters. 3 or 4 pits form one cluster. One family own, this type of clusters. And function of each one is different. 1 or 2 pits, slightly larger ones, with slightly better made, maybe floors. They were used for dwelling purpose, living purpose. One certainly we can identify it as a kitchen, and one as a storage at least. Next, please. We can see in situ evidence impact inside the pits. Not very deep, of course. And inside we have sometimes, fireplace. Sometimes maybe in situ pottery lying on the ground, not thrown, just left there. And the sides and the bottom, they are plastered, they are made smooth. Definitely used for the living purpose. Next, please. Then in the next stage, we find overground circular structures. One circular structure, you can plan of that, you can see. In the excavation, we do not find the superstructure at all. Very rarely, of course, except maybe at Pompeii. But at most of the sites, you find only the plan. From the plan, you have to make the judgment. So we have these structures in the second stage. And in the upper part, in the upper picture, you can see number of series of floors of the rectangle structures. So from pit dwellings to circular structures, from circular to the maybe rectangular structures. Next, please. And this is the structure which comes just before the mature Harappan phase. Now you can see all the Harappan elements present here. The bathroom you can see where they have made the use of the burnt bricks. They have produced typical Harappan building material. The Harappan bricks, typical Harappan bricks in the ratio of 1:2:3. And later in the subsequent phase, 1:2:4 also is represented. So that is a typical building Harappan material produced by these people. Also you can see the presence of the tandoor here, which is exactly like the modern tandoor. The modern people have copied the tandoor from the ancient cultures. Next, please. And this is the stage, just before the full-fledged city development happened. Here you can see the modicum of planning impact. Concept of road, big road, small road, structures on both sides. And it looks very well, a linear pattern very well. And next, please. And then, of course, you have the full-fledged town, full-fledged city. Now this is the development is complete in fact in this particular phase, 2450 BC. So starting from 5500 BC, and then it attained full maturity around 2400 2500 BC. So this is the kind of evidence we have, not denying the fact that there is a strong archaeological data indicating the gradual growth in fact in the culture. Next please. Same is the evidence in fact in the ceramic also. These early ceramic from the lowermost levels of the early Harappan, crude, handmade, not well fired, but then gradually it is getting refined. Next please. Change in the color, becoming more like Harappan. Change in the technology also. Earlier was handmade, now they have started using some small, slow turntable wheel. And next one. And then fully, develop pottery. Use of fast wheel for making pottery. Typical, presence of the Harappan shapes, Harappan decorations. Fully mature in fact, and they also have developed or achieved good success in fact in developing a technique for firing this pottery perfectly. And these were fired in fact in specially designed kilns, the evidence of which has been reported from a number of sites. Next please. Maybe I don't have, but the Harappans have used the circular kilns, and the pottery was kept inside, and the fire chamber was attached to the circular portion. So the fire was placed at the base, and the pottery was covered with maybe the broken potsherds. So the heat was kept circulating inside. That is how the entire pottery got perfectly fired. And even today, in fact, in Gujarat and Rajasthan, you can see the continuity of this firing technology even today. Next, please. Sorry. And then, of course, I come to the most important part. How we could finally succeed in getting DNA from the skeletal remains at Rakhigarhi. Why we failed at Farmana. We realized that later, of course. Firstly, we had not taken proper precaution while excavating. Because when you are excavating, the DNA is so sensitive, or DNA can get into the ancient DNA easily. Today, of course, the scientists have developed the technique of separating ancient DNA and modern DNA, but not in 2008 and 9. That time it was very difficult to separate the ancient and modern DNA. So that precaution was not taken. Secondly, some scientists were to come from Korea and Japan, and they said that you make the entire data ready for us. We'll come and do the sampling. So we excavated nearly 70 burials, and they took almost 2 months to come to India. We kept those burials open for 2 months. And in Punjab and Haryana, in fact, there's a lot of winter rain. So there was a lot of rain, a lot of strong sunshine that affected the presence of DNA. And finally, when these scientists came, they had to return empty-handed because the DNA had completely gone from the skeletal remains. And later, we were told by the Korean scientists, because Korea has developed really a very good technique of the collection of the DNA samples, and also, the method how to excavate the burials. They have developed, in fact, they have learned this by maybe trial and error. And they said that you excavate one burial at a time, take proper precaution, excavate the burial, document it immediately, pack the samples immediately and send to the laboratory. And then you uncover them, clean them, and then send the samples to the clean room for the extraction of DNA. That is what we did, in fact, for the samples from Rakhigarhi. Next, please. So you have a very large area, in fact. The entire burial ground is under the modern